Imagine waking up at like 4 in the morning.
Oh, brew.
Right. You wake up, you plunge into a freezing tub of water, you swallow a handful of, I don't know, 30 different supplements, and then you just absolutely crush a high intensity interval workout before the sun even comes up.
Yeah, and society calls that peak performance.
Exactly. Society praises it. But your biology is probably calling it a desperate, stress-fueled cry for help. I mean, we live in a culture that is just absolutely obsessed with optimization.
Oh, completely.
The macronutrients are perfectly timed, the productivity hacks are endless, and it's all designed to make us faster and sharper. And yet, if you look around, or, if you just check in with yourself listening to this, we are collectively exhausted.
We really are.
Trying so hard to be relentlessly alive is somehow leaving us completely drained. So today's deep dive is for you. You, the person who loves to learn, who constantly seeks to refine their approach to life, but who is perhaps feeling the friction of all this forced optimization.
Yeah, that friction is real.
It is, and we are pulling from a stack of sources today that argue true vitality isn't about adding yet another complex biohack to your routine. It's actually about a profound, almost radical process of subtraction. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it. So the materials we're examining today present this really fascinating framework. They identify two fundamentally different ways a human being can basically exist in the world. They call these ontological orientations.
Ontological orientations, so it sounds intense.
A bit, yeah. But the first one is organic somatic energy. And this is a current that arises naturally. It moves through your physical form like water. It's unforced. And crucially, it's not borrowed from tomorrow's reserves.
Okay.
The second orientation is what the text labels non-organic dependency coping energy.
Wow, that is a mouthful.
It is, but it's entirely manufactured. It's the product of coping architectures that are designed exclusively to keep a person functioning in a high-stress, totally unpredictable environment. And the thing is, your body intimately knows the difference between these two states at a cellular level, even if, modern living has basically trained your mind to forget the distinction.
Right, because non-organic dependency coping energy, it sounds super clinical, but it actually perfectly describes the engine most of us are currently running on.
Exactly.
And the truly wild part is that our culture literally mistakes this stress-driven, manufactured coping mechanism for actual health.
We celebrate it as health,
Yeah.
which completely masks the biological cost. Consider a nervous system that's been trapped in a state of low-grade survival over several years.
Like most adults.
Right. Navigating relentless corporate pressures, financial instability, or just environments where you constantly have to perform. The body adapts to this chronic threat by generating a functional synthetic version of energy using just sheer biochemical force.
So it's faking it.
Basically, it leverages adrenaline to spike your heart rate and cortisol to rapidly liberate stored glucose into the bloodstream. And then that's followed by cheap dopamine hits just to keep you engaged. So instead of relying on the slow, sustainable chemistry of genuine cellular nourishment, it just burns stress hormones. It is a biological workaround. It's not a state of thriving.
It sounds to me like it's like driving a car, right? Like we are revving the engine while the parking brake is firmly on, just relying on the sheer friction of the stress to keep us moving forward.
What's fascinating here is that the biochemical aftermath of those two different ways of operating is completely different.
How so?
Well, take the physical movements of a workout, for instance.
Hmm.
From the outside, they might look identical. You could have two people running on a treadmill at the exact same pace.
Right.
But internally, their environments are completely distinct.
Yeah.
One is running because their physiology is responsive, it's rested, and it genuinely desires to move. The other person is running because sitting still feels emotionally dangerous. Their nervous system requires a massive cortisol spike just to feel alert, followed by an endorphin crash to finally achieve some temporary quiet in their brain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One process leaves the tissues replenished, the other leaves the adrenal glands taxed, and systemic inflammation markers totally elevated.
That is so wild. But if this manufactured energy is so biologically expensive, if it's tearing the engine apart while we drive with the parking brake on, we have to look at how this became our default setting. The sources we're looking at zoom out from individual biology to look at our cultural inheritance.
Yeah, they go big picture.
Because we didn't all just individually decide to break our internal metronomes.
No, not at all. We inherit energetic templates from the overarching society. We operate within a system built entirely on extraction.
Extraction.
Yes. The extraction of natural resources from the land, the extraction of labor, and of course the extraction of our attention through digital interfaces.
Right, our phones are just extraction machines.
Exactly. And a system modeled on extraction naturally produces individuals who don't know how to receive or restore. We become conditioned to mistake profound depletion for productivity.
We really do. We equate frantic busyness with meaning.
Yes. When the surrounding models operate from scarcity and endless output, we inevitably adopt a simulation of vitality rather than the real thing.
And the text introduces a concept here called active dilution, which I think is so important.
It's a great term.
It describes the slow daily erosion of our original biological signal. It's not like one massive trauma, right? It's 1,000 tiny betrayals.
Right.
It happens when your body is signaling a clear no to taking on another project, but you verbally say yes.
We all do that.
Or it happens when you replace a genuine emotional reaction with a sanitized, socially acceptable performance for a client. Or, when you suppress deep physical hunger with just another cup of coffee to push through a deadline.
Just pouring more caffeine on the problem.
Exactly. And over time, that original frequency of your true state just gets buried in static. The tragedy, the sources point out, is that if you live with the static long enough, you start to believe the static is your actual identity.
You literally lose the physical memory of your own baseline. And this is why the authors describe the recovery of organic energy not merely as a health intervention, but as an act of decolonizing the body.
Decolonizing the body, that's a strong phrase.
It is. Reclaiming your physical form and your internal timeline from an extractive culture is an inherently political act. It's a declaration that your biological resources belong to you and not to the endless demands of external performance.
I love that, but I have to say, I'm struggling a bit with the practical application of this active dilution concept.
Sure.
Like, I want to advocate for the reality you, the listener, face every single day, because if I don't suppress my exhaustion to perform for my boss, I might lose my job.
Right. There are real stakes.
Exactly. I have a mortgage. I have real-world obligations. So how is the text suggesting we survive a high-demand society without leaning on this manufactured energy? Like, is all stress inherently toxic?
That's such a vital question. And the sources are careful to clarify that coping is not a moral failing.
Okay, good.
It is a highly rational adaptation to often irrational conditions. You have to navigate complex, demanding environments just to secure your basic needs. So the goal presented isn't to eradicate stress completely or to feel ashamed when you need an adrenaline push to meet a hard deadline.
Right.
The objective is consciousness. It's the ability to actually name the state you are in. When you recognize that you are deploying manufactured energy to just survive a Tuesday, you can move through it intentionally rather than allowing that threat state to become your permanent identity.
Yeah.
It's about not confusing the emergency generator with the main power grid.
Not confusing the emergency generator with the main grid. I like that a lot. So if the first step is naming the trap, the second is finding our way back to the main power grid. And this is highly counterintuitive for the relentless learner who is used to acquiring new tools. Like, the instinct is to ask, what new habit, app, or supplement do I add to fix this?
Always adding.
Always. But the text insists the solution lies entirely in subtraction.
Yeah, the pathway to organic somatic energy requires subtraction before any addition can be effective. The body's inherent natural intelligence hasn't just evaporated, it is simply suffocating under sensory and chemical noise. So recovering it demands the release of energy-leaking patterns.
So we're talking about removing the chronic stimulant use that overrides the body's natural fatigue signals.
Exactly.
Or eliminating the late-night screen exposure that suppresses melatonin and, fragments the architecture of your sleep. Or even stepping back from relationships where you are required to constantly perform a version of yourself just to feel secure.
Yeah, by turning down the volume on all those depleting inputs, you create space for organic energy to finally surface. And the text contrasts the two feelings beautifully.
Oh, the flashlight analogy.
Yes. Manufactured energy is described as shining a harsh, high-lumen flashlight into a pitch-black room. It's directed, it's forced, and everything outside the beam remains invisible.
Yeah.
Organic energy, on the other hand, is like being in a room where the ambient light simply turns on.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources note that organic energy features this profound ease of initiation.
Yes.
Like, you actually want to participate in your life without having to psychologically coerce yourself into doing it.
Right. There is a baseline readiness that replaces frantic urgency. You operate from a natural willingness to engage with your environment, rather than a panicked need to constantly prove your utility.
It's like trying to hear a beautiful acoustic song at a really loud party.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
You don't need a bigger amplifier for the guitar. You just need to turn down the stereo and ask everyone to stop yelling.
Exactly. Just quiet the room.
Right. So if we strip away the noise of artificial stimulants and the constant hum of the emergency generator, what is the body actually asking to absorb to run these systems naturally?
Yeah, what are the inputs?
Exactly. The text shifts from what we must remove to the ancestral inputs we need to reconnect with, and it frames the human body not as a mechanical engine to be tuned, but as a living ecosystem. Let's look at water first, because the sources draw a very sharp mechanistic distinction between living liquids and dead matter.
Right. The premise here is that there's a profound difference between a living biological system and an isolated processed equivalent. Water is the foundational medium of the body. I mean, it governs every single cellular interaction.
Obviously.
And the text advocates for what they call living liquids, specifically citing spring water that retains its organizational complexity.
Okay, so not just tap water.
Right, this isn't just about basic hydration, it's about bioavailability. Spring water contains trace minerals in a state that the body immediately recognizes as cellular cofactors. Highly filtered, stripped water might be, chemically pure H2O, but it lacks the crystalline structure and mineral density necessary to effectively enter the cells without the body having to actually expend its own energy to utilize it.
Wow. They also highlight organic plant medicine, right? Specifically herbal infusions like nettles, oat straw, red clover, and ashwagandha.
Yes, those are key.
And the argument is that steeping these roots and leaves doesn't just extract random bitter compounds. It provides a dense matrix of minerals like highly bioavailable calcium and magnesium that physically rebuild the myelin sheaths around the nerves.
Exactly.
So it nourishes the nervous system from the ground up rather than, whipping the adrenal glands the way a massive dose of isolated caffeine does. It's the difference between providing the body with raw building materials versus just shouting a chemical command at it to work harder.
Yeah, you are receiving nourishment from a complete living system rather than ingesting a fragmented compound. And this principle of natural integration brings us directly to the circadian architecture, which the text identifies as the ultimate ancestral input.
Right, the sun.
The sun, it is the primary driver of human biology. Our entire endocrine system is essentially downstream of light.
The breakdown of this light rhythm in the sources is fascinating, especially the mechanics behind morning light. The text emphasizes getting outside in the first hour after sunrise,
Crucial.
because that specific low-angle, red-rich light hits the melanopsin receptors in the eye, and that communicates directly with the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain.
Yep.
And this naturally triggers the cortisol awakening response, gently elevating blood pressure and temperature to wake you up. I mean, that mechanism is entirely different from the violent artificial shock of an audio alarm clock just tearing you out of a deep sleep cycle.
Oh, completely different. And furthermore, consider the midday sun. Sun exposure on the skin stimulates the synthesis of vitamin D. But what's crucial here is the built-in regulatory intelligence of the skin. When the body synthesizes vitamin D from sunlight interacting with cholesterol, there is a natural feedback loop. The skin literally stops producing it when optimal levels are reached.
Oh, wow. It self-regulates.
Exactly.
Mm.
Conversely, swallowing a high-dose D3 supplement bypasses this biological braking system entirely. It just dumps the end product directly into the liver and kidneys for processing.
So it's forced.
Right. Supplements act as chemical translations, and biological nuance is almost always lost in translation. And finally, as the angle of the sun drops at sunset, the shift in the light spectrum signals the pineal gland to begin melatonin production, easing the nervous system into a state of rest. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the indigenous, earth-based, and somatic traditions that have endured for millennia have always positioned the human body within the larger ecosystem.
Right.
Practices like Qigong, or ancient forms of yoga, recognize that energy is not a commodity you forcefully generate on a stationary bike in a windowless room.
Yeah.
It is a current you align with, receive from the natural world, and channel.
So we've established the inputs, the light signaling the brain, the living liquids nourishing the cells. Now we need to examine the output, like how we expend this energy, and perhaps more crucially, how we stop.
Yes, stopping.
The text draws a very sharp line here between imposed movement and a rising movement.
Right. Imposed movement is basically the modern concept of working out. It's highly scheduled, it's often punitive, and is primarily utilized as a mechanism for emotional regulation or physical manipulation.
Like punishing yourself for eating a donut.
Exactly. A rising movement is a completely different biological phenomenon. When your nervous system is genuinely out of a threat state, the body will signal its own requirements. You will notice a physical restlessness in the muscle tissues, or a spontaneous impulse to stretch the fascia, or just a desire to walk. Relearning to trust these subtle physiological signals is the absolute cornerstone of transitioning back to organic energy.
And the diagnostic tool the authors provide for this is brilliant. You just ask yourself, does this specific movement leave me feeling more like myself or less?
It's such a simple but profound question.
Right. Is my physiology genuinely requesting this activity, or is my mind demanding it as penance for a meal I ate yesterday? If it's always a penance, it's an extractive process that treats the body like an enemy to be conquered rather than an ecosystem to be tended. Which leads us to, honestly, the most countercultural argument in the entire stack of research.
Oh, the radical revaluation of rest.
Yes.
In an extractive economy, rest is coded as a lack of productivity. It's viewed as laziness, right? Just a void where work should be happening. Biologically, however, rest is a highly active, incredibly demanding state. It is not the absence of activity. It is a shift in the type of activity.
And this is where the science gets incredible. We aren't just talking about lying on the couch watching television. During genuine physiological rest, the glymphatic system in the brain literally opens up. It allows cerebrospinal fluid to wash through the brain tissue, literally sweeping away the inflammatory metabolic waste and amyloid plaques that build up during waking hours.
It's taking out the trash.
Exactly. You have immune modulation occurring. You have the consolidation of short-term memory into long-term storage.
And none of those intricate cellular repairs can happen when the body is in motion or under stress.
Wow.
If you consistently deprive your system of this deep restorative state, you are not generating more energy by staying busy. You are simply taking out loans against your future biological function. You are running on a physiological credit line, and the biological debt will inevitably be called in through chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, or cognitive decline.
Okay, but here is the tension for the highly driven listener. If rest is this active, restorative, totally necessary process for clearing out the brain's waste, why does stopping feel so terrifying?
It really does for a lot of people.
I know so many people who feel profound anxiety the moment they sit in a quiet room, yet they feel totally fine running around putting out massive fires at work. Why does the nervous system fight the very thing it desperately needs to heal?
Because stillness removes the distraction. The terror of stopping is rarely physical. It is almost entirely emotional. When you cease the frantic external movement, the adrenaline drops, and all the psychological noise you've been using that movement to suppress just comes rushing to the surface.
Wow.
You're forced to confront the unacknowledged grief, the dissatisfaction, or the trauma you've been running from. This is why nervous system regulation, specifically engaging the vagus nerve to signal safety to the amygdala, is the absolute prerequisite for rest.
You have to feel safe to rest.
Exactly. A brain locked in a chronic threat response will not allow the body to enter a parasympathetic state, regardless of how much sleep you attempt to get. You have to actively cultivate a baseline sense of safety in your environment and your mind before the body will grant you permission to truly rest.
It all connects so seamlessly. Taking the parking brake off requires first acknowledging it's engaged. Turning down the stereo allows us to hear the subtle signals our biology is sending. And choosing to stop burning kindling allows us to rebuild the hardwood foundation of our health. It's about letting the body's natural ecosystem run the way it evolved to operate.
Yeah. And the transition from non-organic coping energy to organic somatic vitality is not a linear project with a defined finish line.
Right.
You don't have to perfectly execute every habit or eradicate every single coping mechanism by tomorrow. It is simply a fundamental shift in orientation.
So what does this all mean? It means that true vitality is not an optimization project. It is a homecoming. It is about shifting your direction so you can finally listen to the profound mechanical wisdom your cells already possess. It's about allowing true presence and genuine biological repair to replace the hollow, exhausting performance of manufactured energy.
This raises an important question, though. The next time you find yourself staring at the ceiling, feeling completely exhausted, and your first instinct is to reach for another stimulant or schedule a punishing workout just to shock your system into functioning, ask yourself, are you truly lacking energy? Or is your biology simply begging you to let go of the performance of aliveness so it can finally remember how to actually live?
Wow. That is a thought that will stick with you long after the audio stops. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As you navigate the demands of this week, experiment with treating your biology a little less like a machine to be optimized and a little more like an ecosystem to be deeply cared for.